Well, Iram, we're live. Welcome. Good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another surf session. Today is episode 12. My name's Anthony Green. I lead the sales team here at Surfside. And as always, I'm your host for today. For those that don't know us quickly, Surfside, we're an advertising technology company. We help cannabis brands and retailers, thousands of them, to advertise their business and their brands compliantly online. Today, I am really stoked to welcome Iram Cesani, Executive Director of Digital Marketing at Trulieve. Welcome to Surf Sessions, Iram.
Thanks for having me. I see the attendees rolling in now, so good to see everyone virtually, that is, and I'm excited to be here with you, Anthony. We've been together
mate. We love doing this live. It's more candid, fun. Look, literally, and I don't use that word lightly, literally, everyone in the cannabis industry knows Trulieve, an absolute behemoth, huge MSO, well over 200 dispensaries. We'll talk more about that, set in 7 states. And in fact, I know people in Florida that don't smoke or consume cannabis, and they also all know Trulieve. So that's how synonymous Trulieve is in the industry and in states like Florida. And my guest today, Iram, is also very, very well known. I've been lucky enough for the last 4+ years to work with Iram. Last 2.5 years, mate, we've been working together in my role here at Surfside. I know that you're a digital pioneer in a very fast-growing, very challenging industry. And we've got a lot of curious folks live with us today who are ready to learn more about how you made it happen. So with no further ado, let's get started. I want to start not at the beginning per se, but certainly sort of at the start of your career. So I can't believe it's been 4+ years we've known each other. And again, I know that you're just an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to this space. So early in your career, Iram, you cut your teeth at a company called Proforma, which is a marketing ad agency. You were at Striker, which is a medical device company, multinational medical device company, which are great, obviously, areas to learn for the role you're in today. Can you take us back a little bit to those early days and just recount maybe some of the things that still hold true for you today at Trulieve?
Yeah, I wouldn't say things or lessons. Those are plural. It was really one key takeaway that I carry with me today. It's I never said no in my early days. At that time, I'm coming off the runway at a college, at a grad school, had no children at the time, no mortgage, no partner. All I had was time. And I felt no would be prohibitive both personally and professionally in the workspace along colleagues that at that time, we were coming out of a recession in 2008, fought for the role. Having never said no to anything really opened a lot of opportunity in terms of networking, subject matter expertise on current skill sets and new skill sets, because when I was taking on those additional projects, I was meeting new people. When I was taking on additional tasks, I was learning new skill sets. When I was taking on attending events, seminars, conferences, pop-ups, parades, it really opened up what a textbook couldn't teach me in college. It really broke in street smart credibility coupled with book smart agility in terms of I was learning much more, absorbing the environment, listening to key stakeholders, and really just I was under an observation bubble. That was very fortunate because when you didn't say no, leadership always appreciates folks that got it done, knew how to get it done. And if they didn't, they knew what to do to get it done. So that's something that has carried me through the last 15 years in marketing specifically. The power of not saying it opened a lot more doors than any application could have in LinkedIn.
Mate, I love that concept. I sometimes wonder if the generations coming through have that same
different time.
It's a little bit more, what can you do for me rather than what can I do for you? But anyway, that's another topic for another time. So, mate, fast forwarding then a bit to around 2017, you began your foray into this wild world of cannabis and cannabis marketing, and you were at Magical Butter, which is now Magical Brands, for about 4 years, where you were helping their business grow online. That included product marketing, UI, UX, lots of different marketing channels as well. Obviously, you had a very successful tenure there and you crushed it because you ended up being global marketing director. What was it about that role going in there that first attracted you to this industry? And Is that what's keeping you in the industry still today for what, over 8 years?
100%. I think joining Trulieve, let me rephrase it this way. In cannabis, some days will bloom like onions and others like roses, right? And that's for any industry in the game. I think in 2017, just thinking about it now, I was at a major pharmaceutical medical device company. So believe it or not, a lot of the subject matter expert professionals in the medical field and pharma world knew quite a bit about cannabis, specifically in Florida. So much so, I attended Martinis for Moffitt. Moffitt is one of the leading cancer institutions in the world, located here in Tampa, Florida at a USF. Martinis for Moffitt was a benefit and gala and brought the brightest minds in the space. I happened to come across a meet and greet with the founder of Magical Butter at the time, homegrown, out of the garage, first 2 years, think startup. It was in its incubator phase, raising funds. And I clearly knew, because I'm an avid user of the plant prior, what an awesome opportunity that would be to consult on the side for a business that was poised for accelerated growth. And this is a couple years before COVID, and COVID played a major change into my current role. Started consulting, came on full time because I saw the trajectory in terms of sales of like how exciting this could be. And at that time, I was figuring out money is not everything. I'd rather be happy at my workplace and take a reduction to do the things and test my craft and do it for a plant that I've been using for years than wearing a suit and tie in a hospital all day. The common sense and logic was already there. And when I joined full time, the business, think about it, that now we're going into COVID, like cannabis sales skyrocketed. It was like rocket fuel for the global market. Magical Butter created the first of its kind. It was an edibles device contraption that made infused oils. You can put on popcorn, you can infuse your salad dressing for your Caesar. You could even infuse the butter that you put into sweets, treats, and candies. It was a multi-variant machine that really got me close to the cannabis consumer while not plant touching. And then 4 years in, I became the global marketing director. You're talking about a company, that startup, that went to 32 countries, 11 languages. We signed partnership deals with Amazon and Walmart post the acquisition of Jet.com, which fueled their commerce arena. And we were really absorbing data, candidly, no one in that ancillary business to cannabis was doing. We also had wholesale partnerships with partners like Green Lane, which is located in South Florida, which is a common name. And then 4 years in, I thought about, if I'm knowing all this about the customer, I can only imagine the sales on the plant touching side for those players. And Trulieve was everywhere at the time. I joined the company. The role was open, nothing crazy, had favorable interviews. And I joined the team organically as if you applied to any other role. And I joined the company in those days when it was 88 stores. Today we're 231. And that's just, I'm coming up on 4 years next month. So that's what's kept me here. I've been an avid user of the plant. I sat in the ancillary markets and learned from a global level different consumption methods and variables that go into that from a data perspective and from a consumption lens. And then I joined a plant touching business who is now the leader in that, and I haven't looked back.
Well, mate, it's very smart path because you learn the marketing, advertising stuff, learn the medical industry stuff, you learn the cannabis industry stuff, and then, of course, you land at the biggest, most badass MSO of all. And today you find yourself as executive director of digital marketing at that little group there called Trulieve, over $1.2 billion in revenue. That's in 2024. And as I said in my preamble, everyone here on this call today, I guarantee you, everyone knows Trulieve. You're dominant, obviously, in Florida. You said you were everywhere when you started with 88. Now you're truly everywhere in that state. Also a major player in Arizona, Maryland, Ohio, and beyond. You guys are truly a powerhouse. So in your current role, you're responsible for 22, I believe, of 28 of the touch points across 12 different marketing channels. So a big chunk of the pie sits under you. Can you share high level? Because obviously there's a lot there. How do you and your team and Trulieve, how do you see the digital journey for a current and a future Trulieve customer?
Yeah, I'm going to take us on a journey, if you will, and use some real world box examples that pair it pretty nicely to the industry. Trulieve, the cannabis industry, MSO or SSO, it's all online, right? Customers are not ripping print mail open, they're opening email. Customers do not hear about your business and go to the yellow page phone book that's sitting under a cupboard. They're going to social media to look for validation and credibility. We aren't using MapQuest to print out directions anymore. They're going to Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze to figure out where you're located. While not all sales flow through traditional e-commerce websites, your customer is online. Email, text, social, Google, online reviews, your whole life, and I would assume everyone on this call has a smartphone, revolves around that. You need to be online to maintain relevance, credibility, and reputation, in my honest marketing professional opinion. And using context, let's look at big box for an example, right? Think about all the brands who failed to adopt tech, e-com, and the online visibility of their customer journey. Toys R Us lost to Amazon Marketplace. Sears lost to Walmart Commerce. Borders, the bookstore, lost to eBooks. Blockbuster dismissed Netflix and because they refused to pivot to streaming. To bring it more relevant for the younger crowd on this call, think about Forever 21, Party City, and Joann Fabrics completely erased. It wasn't a gradual decline. These brands, and I know 30, 40 other brands in the traditional mall concept, failed to adopt the online presence, and while they publicly spoke on innovation, practice what they preach, and ultimately lost that customer to giants that we all shop, eat, and wear today. I say all that because Trulieve has made the right investments. We've hired the right talent. We focused on the projects that drove revenue, more importantly, profitability and customer engagement. And we continue to see those wins every day because we know a majority of our customer is online. And that's probably the best way I could put it, because we're seeing those examples every day.
Mate, the point about not every customer transacts online, but certainly they spend a lot of time online, understanding, learning, educating, looking at what you got available, checking out the menu. It's that gray area of people that do that, and then they come in and buy as well. And you've got to influence them, obviously, where they are, where they're spending their time digitally. So they come into a Trulieve and buy your products, obviously, versus the competitor. I think that's something that in other industries people don't forget or neglect, but I do find that's neglected in cannabis. People are thinking retail foot traffic or e-commerce, but not the influence of one on the other.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say I see this in and out of cannabis. So many businesses may focus on one area versus all. We're truly an omni-channel approach to the consumer. Can't go all in on social media. Not everyone is on social media, so you might need to pivot to email. Not everyone answers their 10,000 emails, so you got to pivot to text. If they're not on their website, they might be on Google. If they're not on Google, they might be on Waze. Like, there's just so many different ways to communicate with people online. And I think people put the blinders like horses and they focus on one channel. You need to be everywhere all at once, all the time, to everyone. And it's not easier said than done. And it's why it's very important when it comes to talent. You can have the best platforms in the world, but you do need someone who is a jack of all trades that can scale your business in all those arenas, because you're not going to find 100% of your customers in one channel. You need to be multi-variable in terms of communication and the output of that campaign development.
Yeah, sometimes we have to remind folks that if it was easy as serving one ad once to a person and they became a lifetime customer, then no one would advertise, because everyone would do that. It would become irrelevant, right? You got to get your touch points right. You got to get your cadence right and message consistently across all those channels. So I love that. Mate, let's talk about growth. The growth, you mentioned this, you started with 88 dispensaries when you started, 231. Is that the number now? 231, 236?
Yep, I joined, store 88 and 231 as of today.
231 as of today, be 236 soon. So that's 2.5x.
Yeah.
And I looked this up, by the way, Iram. That's actually one of the fastest growth trajectories of US retail, period, in that time. Not just in cannabis. I mean, it would be number one in cannabis, biggest relatively in the US. So, and that's also across 8 states. So I want to talk a little bit about teams and scaling teams. And you talked about hiring the right talent. How have you gone about finding that talent? Are you bringing it in from the industry? Are you bringing it in from outside? It's a combination of the two. How do you scale a team to scale the way Trulieve is scaling retail locations?
Yeah, 2 ways to answer that. I would not correlate new markets to more headcount because the business has invested primarily in its online ecosystem. I've become and developed personally on a lean, mean SWAT team machine, right? Because we have the right tech stack, We have the optionality to expand with agencies, partners, and platforms and focus less on the manual work and focus more on the automation, right? While there may be nuances in new states due to regulatory environments, right? Some communications have to be approved. Some communications need to be reviewed or re-reviewed. Email is email, SMS is SMS, social, rewards, website. The channels are still there, where it's not like we're bringing on entirely new tech stacks to facilitate the market. And the same thing goes for people. It's much easier, for pivots to happen, and pivots happen 100% of the time in this market. When pivots happen, it's much easier to change process and platform than it is to flip people. So that covers that. New markets, I wouldn't correlate to new headcount. I think new markets equal more opportunity to expand the current tech stack. The other piece to your question is what I look for. It depends by channel, right? If I know in email marketing, we're the smallest in that space, then I'm going to look for industry expertise to gain that credibility, knowledge, and advancement to grow. If we are already the biggest in that space, I will use social media for an example. I'm not going to look backwards to anyone behind us. I'm going to look to global players in spaces that are much more relevant. So I think it comes down to channel. I've seen this in cannabis often. Folks want people who solely in the expertise of cannabis. Cannabis isn't that old, right? You're in a maturing industry, likely in a business that's still in its infancy, incubation, or maturing stage. You might want to bring someone who has a couple years outside of that space, who actually pushed buttons, who actually did strategy, who actually had expertise, than hiring someone who spent 6 months in the dispensary for a channel that requires 5 years of experience, and vice versa. I've also seen people in marketing get hired as a social media manager or a CRM, and then they're stacked with 20 other roles. And that's why it's equally important to focus on folks who have jacks of all trades. Someone who has a couple months in email, social, CRM, e-commerce, rewards, et cetera, than getting one expertise and you're going to ask them to do more. So I focus on a broadband by channel, not by stack, if you will, of marketing. I focus on what particular marketing expertise is there, where's the industry at, and where we need to be. And that kind of dictates who comes on the team and who does not.
That makes sense. Well, I mean, I think I see a post from you guys or you weekly or every other day on LinkedIn hiring a new e-commerce this or digital marketing that. It's you guys are hiring a lot of folks down there. Mate, something you talked about as we did a little prep for this call a few weeks ago. It's a philosophy you have, and it's something that I want to dig in on here.
Yeah.
I was asking you about how you think about different consumers in different states. And you said, well, you don't think about it that way. You don't think about different customers. You think about different consumption habits. And I thought that was really, really smart. And I think it requires some elaboration, explanation. So can you talk about how thinking about different consumption habits affects the way you go to market and you communicate with your customers?
Right. Best way to put that is we focus on the action first, then the intent. To make that very clear, while intent has promise today, because technology is evolving quicker than iPhones are being delivered every year, your conversion is likely to happen on what they're already buying. And that's where we put our core focus in. Then we layer intent. So for example, and I see this every day in and out of cannabis, today we're serving millions of customers across every category. It makes 10x more sense for me to get them to come back on what they're already buying than ignoring Anthony bought flour and try to read data on their $120,000 household income, and then they live in Miami Shores and all these great things, and get them to go off the rails and send them an email about blueberry gels when their last 30 purchases were clearly flour. Focusing on action first, then intent. Many businesses, and I see this across the board, particular in this industry, they launch a new product and try to sell it to everyone. You can't be everything to everyone, and folks who try to be end up being nothing to everyone. Right? Humanity and humane development is just not built for that, to cater to everyone. You should process the product ecosystem equally such, specifically in marketing when you're talking about the customer journey. You want to focus on the consumption model and continuously award those customers to come back with discounts and promotions and deals and rewards on what they're currently buying, so that retention remains strong. Trulieve is one of the strongest retention models I've seen ever. And it's because we solely focus on the consumption model and their behavior versus trying to get them to buy everything. Not everyone's going to be a pantry loader. People like what they like, specifically in cannabis. And then we take those consumption patterns, which is the action, and then layer in intent. And this is for all our markets. We define the behavior such as this. We see you buy 9-pound hammer flour. We start educating, informing them that we have 9-pound hammer vape carts, 9-pound hammer True Pods, 9-pound hammer if you're looking for something more stronger, we have dose syringes because we know what strain you like. We know the category of that product you like. You're likely to like similar products, and that's where intent comes in. That way, you're not only building baskets in terms of units per transaction, you're growing customer lifetime value through behaviors. You're also growing baskets, you're driving frequency, and you're getting your customers to adopt products in multiple categories and subcategories without ever actually leaving what their original action was. And that, I think, is a recipe, and factually know it's a recipe for success. Focus on what your customers are buying. Make sure they return, and then try to cross-sell, upsell, parentheses, intent, with products that are similar to that, than trying to sell them something they never bought to begin with. You could lose that customer because they'll realize you're not engaged, you're not listening, and you're not reading the data. And ultimately, right now, we're in the era of personalization. You need to listen to what they're buying versus what you think they could buy. It's probably the best way to answer that.
Mate, yes, that was an incredible answer and so comprehensive. My follow-up then, Iram, is there for the new consumer, let's say the person that said, oh, screw it, we didn't get rec in Florida, I've got to go get my medical card now. They've never bought anything at all, maybe legally. Maybe they bought on the black market, whatever.
Yeah.
What about where do you start with them? Because you don't know, like they might love edibles, they might just want a topical, they might smoke tons of flower. Like that's, I know it's a much smaller subsegment, but it's a very lucrative one, right? Getting those new folks on board. How do you figure out what their consumption habits are, and how long does it take? How long does it take to figure that out?
Yeah, totally get it. Well, I didn't wake up and the data was in our CRM, that's for sure. That is where our partnership with the in-store experience comes into play. While everyone is online, IRL is very real. Humans still enjoy human interaction. Everyone does not want to get an answering machine, an automated dial when they call in customer service. We heavily rely, and I'm going to use Florida for an example, our physician networks to drive recommendations both on where they buy and what they buy. Our DAs, which are our dispensary associates in Florida, are highly educated, no pun intended, on our product ecosystem and what we serve based on the allotments you've been given throughout the OMMU. That data is then collected in our POS systems, and we use that data to communicate to those customers because a majority of our customers opt into email. We can say, hey, we saw that you bought X, Y, and Z, learn about it through this blog. Hey, we saw that you browsed these products. Here's a little bit more information about that. The retail workforce and marketing are very close. You can't work well without the other. And we heavily rely on our workforce to educate and prime them up before it even ever comes to marketing. Now, there are some customers who join our rewards program prior to making a purchase because they want those points immediately, right? There are folks who join email and SMS marketing channels to know about a business before they purchase. But for folks who had no idea, which is rare, but no idea about us in the state of Florida, for an example, and this is what would replicate across any market, the retail workforce does a phenomenal job at that education piece. We lead the information, which bridges the conversion.
Yep. I love the bridging of the on and offline worlds, dare I say. Mate, we're coming up to time. I want to ask all the people who are here live, if you have any questions, please fire them across for Iram, and we'll have time for one or two, maybe three, depending, at the end. So please feel free to ask questions, and we'll pick a few good ones. I did want to wrap up a little bit, mate, with the topic du jour of the industry a little bit right now, which is THC-infused beverages. Trulieve's making a big play, or made a big play in this space. You have, I think, the best named products so far, Onward and now Upward. I mean, talk about being memorable, being on brand, being on message. Like they're such great brands. I love them. Just want to get a little bit of a sense of, I know it's a separate sort of scenario to some degree, but the experience so far. What can you talk about? Yeah, that experience, being involved in that. Anything you can talk about, probably not sales numbers, but just around the marketing mix and what you're doing. I know it's early days, but it's such a hot topic and there's so much talk about it. And I know people just want to hear a little bit about what you and Trulieve are doing with Onward and Upward.
Yeah, great questions. I'll try to answer each one in order of importance. Onward launched a couple months ago. Upward is our most recent launch within the Onward umbrella. Upward is our energy drink line. Onward is 5 flavors that are cocktails, THC infused, and then our energy drinks with another 4 flavors. Without getting into the sales numbers, the numbers are numbering in terms of our marketing mix across brick and mortar storefronts, thankful to a phenomenal distribution network, subscriber growth in CRM in terms of email, social media, share of voice, influencer marketing, and advertising for the first time for the company on the Meta platforms, which is super exciting. Along with, I see you sharing your screen.
I just want to show this to bring this to life. This is one of your big partners in Florida, ABC.
Yep, ABC. Onward presented an opportunity to reach the masses who do not or cannot make it to our dispensaries. We are casting wider audiences to grab wallets, eyes, and impressions of an entirely new category that, in my opinion, is poised for acceleration and equally poised to hit every shelf in the country. Our premium line of THC-infused cocktails has signed up with Romano Beverage, Anheuser-Busch in North Florida, recently Benny's in Chicago, Total Wines, ABC. We're on their marketplaces, apps, and websites. It's just a truly omni-channel build that's a little bit different than your traditional marketing on our cannabis side at Trulieve. However, equally same in terms of strategy, approach, and expectation. And we look to bring it to every fridge near you. So Onward's doing really well. Upward is our recent launch. We have new flavors coming out in the summer, both seasonal for Q4. So it's an exciting time with the beverage line. And again, being in spaces cannabis traditionally is an opportunity in itself to learn from.
Yeah, it's a same but different beast. And I love what we're doing here with you guys with ABC, getting the Onward ads on the e-com menu here. Consumers, it's got your attention. I click on it, driving some sales there for you guys, through some of your key partners, which is really cool.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to the omni-channel note I made above. The customer is online. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? We don't need to create our own alcohol marketplace. We'll just go to the leaders like ABC and Total Wines as examples and say, hey, there is a partnership, there is a need, and there is a demand. Let's create something beautiful and magical and ride this boat together. I think I see a lot of space, and a lot of times in the cannabis realm, people are trying to reinvent the wheel. Focus on where the customer already is. We're already in platform fatigue with 2,000 apps on our smartphone. We don't need to create new environments. Just go into the current ones and create your own name for yourselves. Surfside has been a bright example of that, being one of our largest advertisers in the space. Again, Anthony mentioned we've been together for years. Surfside has also provided the same opportunities in terms of targeting the right folks, grabbing the right eyeballs, driving the right action that rolls up to proper revenue targets. Again, looking at Surfside and using ABC or Total Wines or our rewards program and all the great things we talked about across Onward and Trulieve, these are where customers currently are. Let's just go find the big players, create those great partnerships, learn from the data, and act on that. And it's a recipe for success.
Mate, we love our partnership with you folks, with you, with Gina, with Gene and Adam and the whole team. Thank you. We got some really good questions here. We got a number. We're not going to get through them all, but we'll start with a question, Iram, from Meg on your earnings call today. It was shared that rewards and loyalty program has been a huge success. You've got, according to this, 725,000 members, which is crazy. And a lot of the transactions are being done by loyalty members. So the question for Meg is, what led to the revamp of the program? Any lessons you learned along the way with that revamp?
The lesson is the revamp, and we acted on that, right? So great question, Meg. The reason for the revamp for the rewards program, and it's my early days, Trulieve was going through an exciting period of acquisition across multiple markets. I had joined 3 days before the largest transaction in the cannabis industry when we placed a $2 billion buy on Harvest, which catapulted Trulieve to become the largest operator in the US and eventually the global market in terms of brick and mortar storefronts. We noticed there was multiple rewards programs running around, confusing customers, inadequate and inaccurate targeting at the time. And then the tech stack was very young from the marketing side. We were in the promising stages of rebuilding that entire ecosystem. And about a year and a half in, again, focusing on the right talent, we identified a need for some of the best brands in the space have a loyalty program or a rewards program. There are stark differences between the two. And we felt we want to drive retention. We want to listen to our customer. We want to reward our best customers. Why not go down the route and create a one-size-fits-all program nationally? And that took about 9 months and then rolled out. And 2/3 of our customer base, according to earnings this morning, we have 775,000 customers. We're on pace to become 7 figures by end of year because the customer clearly knew a good rewards program drives items like retention and lifecycle marketing. And our rewards program is rich enough to get customers to continuously come back. So again, it was a great story of you have the data, it'll be a lesson learned or a lesson grieved. And we acted on that and built that nationwide. It's been an exciting ride since.
Well, it's a lesson either way. I know you were a big part of that, mate. I didn't know those numbers. That's pretty amazing. Probably the biggest one in the industry, I would think. All right, a couple other quick questions. Elise asks, hi, Iram, what advertising channel provides you the best ROI for Trulieve? Does it vary by state?
Our biggest advertising channel, and the only advertising we do is digital out of home and programmatic on the desk, is equal in every state. I find what works in one market can be replicated in another. Again, using regulatory shifts, changes in the environment of the customer, focusing on the action. We have 7 categories of product. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We pair up beauty and lifestyle imagery. Surfside is our largest partner in that space, which is phenomenal. And it really just comes down to where the customer is. Again, we're not posting advertisements in trains because that's not the formal communication of transport in Florida. We're going towards gas stations. We're going towards gyms and restaurants and online advertising forums. I think the ROI sits best online than it does would be print, for example, or IRL activations like music festivals, which have advertising opportunities. Our best ROI is online, and the best platforms are by market, and they shift a little bit differently. But for us, it's all online.
Right. Mate, we'll finish on this last question. I can't get to them more, folks. I apologize because we've already gone a little bit over. Why not finish on AI? Hey, we've got a question here on AI, the other topic du jour of our lives. So how are you using AI, Iram, and AI agents to inform your marketing? Do you have any tools that you recommend?
Yeah, AI is weaved in through the entire ecosystem of our MarTech, primarily driving a ton of automation. When you're absorbing data points like purchasing history, clickstream data, advertising touch points, mobile IDs, pick your word, AI is the only available tool to process that level of data to execute across millions of eyeballs, quite candidly, every day. The best tools, in my opinion, if I had to go after 2, would be investments in the CDP, a customer data platform. Cannabis, in my opinion, CRMs are not the great ones for this industry. It's a customer data platform because all you need to ingest right now is the data while it's fresh, first-party data to be in particular. If you're looking for a platform to centralize your email, SMS, rewards, social media, your entire tech stack for marketing, don't go after the CRM. It's a relationship management tool built for businesses who already have the relation. Cannabis, most of the time, is incubating or maturing. So you want to go after a data platform to absorb the data and layer in CRM tactics. The second piece behind the CDP, or customer data platform, a serious investment into online monitoring tools. People are talking about your business in more areas than social media. Get a tool that focuses in share of voice so you can bring in the conversation from social, from online review platforms, from product reviews on Marketplace, from online site activity. Online monitoring tools or share voice tools help really drive and understand what your consumer is searching and talking about, which ultimately will lead to the engagement and behavior of that customer. Right now, voice search is dominating. AI search is dominating. You'll notice on Google, it starts with AI. And when you notice on voice to Alexa, Siri, Hey Google, and all the other platforms, people are just not searching anymore. You have to go where the customer is going, and a share of voice tool helps you understand your business's reputation to help drive credibility and your PMIX.
Mate, online monitoring, I'd be surprised if many people are doing that right now. That's a good
There's
tip.
a million tools. If I can give you, I would say SEM Rush is the most wallet savvy option out there. They have completely expanded. Bazaar Voice is another one, more for enterprise level. Share of voice tools can expand. There's a million different vendors, but just getting just to understand what people are even saying about your brand and your products and your notions will help drive a lot about your business, more than what you would think. So I think a customer data platform to build relationships and layer in CRM, and a share voice tool, you're set up for success in the upfront and for the long term.
Right, I love it. Thank you. Very useful and practical tips for folks. So look, unfortunately, that brings us to the end for today. It's time for us to all get on with the rest of our days. But Iram, mate, thank you for joining me today, joining us today, imparting so much great information. What you've achieved is phenomenal. You're in a great place at a great company. So the future is incredibly bright. If folks want to reach out and ask you questions direct, I know they can find you on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to Iram on LinkedIn. The next session is August 20. We've got Aaron Dubois from Story. But until then, Iram, thank you again. And everybody, it's bye for now.
Thanks.